Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing fantastically well. So when deciding to go with any particular prop firm, we'll look at the rules, the restrictions that are applied, whether it be some of the quirky rules or some of the standard rules. Now, one of the things that traders will tend to avoid is any restrictions around trading news. Now, personally, I believe that's because that's when I think the most gains are going to be made, trading high volatility news events, especially when we've seen some of the huge spikes in some of the indices, gold and Forex, around CPI data, non-farm payroll and FOMC announcements. But we also see it around these times is this is when most people will blow their accounts and hit the daily drawdown limits, primarily based on they've gone too big a lot size, too big a trade, and they haven't expected any slippage when they're getting out of the trade, and this goes and blows their account. So for me, trading high volatile news is not a good thing. I generally stay away from those particular things. But if you are somebody who wants to actually trade news events, there are ways around it by trading with Ftmo, by looking actually what news events are restricted and what are the restricted instruments. Because although they actually have on a weekly basis, sometimes 3, 4, 5 particular events, depending on what's coming out, that are restricted news events where you cannot place a trade 2 minutes before and therefore 2 minutes after that actual news comes out. The reality is that doesn't actually affect that many instruments. When you break it down to the actual individual things being traded, we still can trade around the majority of the news events that Ftmo actually announce. So Ftmo restricted news events only apply to funded traders. If you are in the challenge phase or verification phase, it makes no difference whatsoever to you at all. You can trade all these high volatile news events. In fact, I would say it's almost encouraged to trade them because that's where a lot of people will go and blow their accounts because they don't have the correct risk management and the correct trade sizing in place to actually be able to trade them, because the volatility can be so huge, so massive, it catches a lot of traders out. But when you're in the funded phase, is at that point you need to be very diligent and make sure you do apply all of those particular rules, because you are in jeopardy of losing your funded account. We know you put it in a lot of hard work, hours, days, months worth of actually trading to actually get to that funded point. Don't go and blow it by trading a stupid trade around a news event. So all you've got to do is go into the Ftmo calendar, click on the restricted news events. You can filter this by day or by the entire week, and you can see what's actually coming out. Now we know that every single week we have oil inventory figures. So if you're somebody who doesn't trade oil, then that's something that is totally irrelevant to you. You can trade any other indices, commodities or Forex pairs around that particular time. It makes no difference. If we look at some of the Bank of England rates, that's generally only going to affect GBP. We look at the European ECB interest rates. That's really going to affect trading the euro. Doesn't have any impact trading UK 100 indices or gold, for example. Some of the Australian banks, Canadian banks, they are only going to affect trading that one particular instrument if you are trading the Canadian dollar. Everything else, you are free to trade no matter what it is, and you can trade around those news events, because effectively, if the Canadian bank is going to do an interest rate increase or decrease, that's only going to affect the Canadian dollar. It won't have much of an impact on the euro, for an example. So trading euro would be unrestricted, and you can do that whenever you want to. When we look at some of the bigger news announcements, so CPI data from the US, this typically is only a restriction on trading the US dollar and US 30 stock indices, where you're able to trade UK 100, which generally will track and react identically to these other ones. Trading gold, for example, will react and track identical to the US dollar because they're having an impact on the rest of the market. You could trade these ones as an example if you wanted to do a really high volatile breakout around the news coming out that particular time. Personally, I would advise against that. I would always say wait for the news to come out, digest it, see what the market is going to do with that news, and then get into the trade afterwards. We've seen it so many times where a spike literally comes out with the news, it goes down by a certain percentage, and then instantly reverse whips, goes all the way back up. And if you were going short because you saw the initial movement was short, the digestion of that news by the market then reacts and reverses that very quickly, and you can be stopped out for significant losses. So a little bit of planning, a little bit of foresight, and just being careful and understanding what you are trading will allow you to trade around the majority of the news events that come out with Ftmo. So if you're looking at if the dollar is a restricted event, then potentially trading Euro JPY will be allowed because it's not a dollar thing. Although it's linked to dollar because they're all cross pairs, essentially it's not a true dollar currency, and therefore you could be able to trade that one. As I said before, oil is one of those bizarre ones that you have a particular instrument around a particular event coming out around the oil inventories. So I would say definitely don't trade that one. But again, you can trade anything else around that particular time frame. And majority of it, you look at the filtering of the events, you might only have 3-4 events coming out. Some of those might be in Asia sessions when we're already asleep, so therefore not applicable. And I said, it might be things that we are trading that are just not relevant to us, like oil. So therefore we don't have to worry about any restricted events in the entire week. We can trade when we want, how we want, and don't worry about the news. But as always, I would say, make sure you go and read the websites, make sure you actually do try these things out, and even go and directly chat with Ftmo, either through Discord or through their live chat on their website. Just ask that same questions if you are really unsure, because ultimately this only affects the funded traders. When you're actually on a challenge, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. You can trade what you like, when you like. It's only as a funded trader. Now, when you actually get to the funded trader, you are generally a bit more disciplined and focused around looking at what news events are going to come out and trade them however you want to. So for me, it's just being diligent, doing that daily routine, working out what news is going to come out, will it affect my trades, will it affect the markets I'm in? If it is, don't trade around that sort of particular time. I wouldn't even worry about the 2 minutes before, 2 minutes after. I'd probably say an hour before, an hour after, because the market is just in limbo. And then we're in great shape to go, trade and make some fantastic profits. So I hope you enjoyed today's quick summary of how you can trade restricted news events with Ftmo, and it allows you to go and become a better trader. So as always, thanks for watching. See you again soon. Cheers.